Today's video is going to be a bit of an experiment. It could go horribly wrong. It doesn't have to, though. We're going to talk about 5 controversial audiophile topics that seem to be a bit divisive. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's be adults about this. You know, when I talk to some of my audiophile buddies about online forums, it's almost a punchline about how bad online forums can be. And I'm not saying that they're all bad. They're not. People usually aren't welcomed with open arms if they're new or if they disagree with the prevailing thought process of that forum. Let's discuss things reasonably. We're all intelligent people. Let's be respectful of one another. Let's choose to help. So in the comments, let's talk about all of these topics. So let's help one another with our collective experience, not just parrot what we've read or heard like a mindless automaton. Maybe who's never had an original thought in their head. Let's not do that, okay? Let's talk about some cables. Ooh, speaker cables and RCA interconnects, or I don't know, balanced interconnects. Never has there been a more divisive topic in all of audio than cables. Do cables matter? Yeah, sure. Why not? So when I buy speaker cables or I make my own, I always get oxygen-free copper, not copper-clad aluminum. I want all copper. So I think most people would agree that, yeah, you need a good conductor. I generally get 12 gauge or 14 gauge, and I call it good. Now, I have talked to one of my buddies, Ryan William. He uses some canary wire. There's also some stuff from Mogami that has, I don't know, special science stuff to make it better. And that's the thing about it. I actually have a degree in science stuff. And most of my professional career outside of YouTube was working with sciencey stuff. So I get it. I appreciate the scientific method. I like testing and verification and data. I think it's awesome. But why does this topic elicit such vitriol from our community? And why do people have to be on one side or the other? Why can't we be in the middle? I'm kind of in the middle because I'm not going to run out and buy $1,000 cables. I may spend $50 or even $100 on a set of decent speaker cables. Not because I'm going to get any type of performance or I expect any type of performance increase, but because the cables are built well. Has nice banana plugs. Looks pretty. So I'll spend $100 on cables, but I have no expectation that they're going to sound better. But if you do believe that cables make a difference, just put it in the comments and explain why. Explain your experience. Share your experience with what it was like before and what it was like after. And I know there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork saying, well, you need to do a blind test. Yeah, sure, okay. But it doesn't matter. If you like it and you can afford it, then who cares how much you spent on speaker cables? Taryn, the British audiophile, who I really like, did a blind test of sorts with a bunch of RCA interconnects, and he could hear a difference. I like Taryn. I have no problem with Taryn, and I trust Taryn. So if Taryn tells me he heard a difference, I believe that he heard a difference. I've actually heard a difference in RCAs. I know. I was almost sad that I did. I'm like, oh, goodness gravy. I heard a difference. Now I got to go down this rabbit hole. I haven't actually gone down the rabbit hole, but I will say when I buy RCAs now, I buy the world's best cables. I'll link them in the description. They're $20 or $30 for a set of RCA interconnects, so they're not crazy expensive. And I think one of the reasons why this specific topic is so divisive is because there is evidence that manufacturers maybe have a pretty large profit margin in some of their cables. And I think that rubs people the wrong way. It's a free market society, and if someone can get a huge margin on one of their products, then more power to them. So if you are a believer in cables, pop it in the comments. And if you are a non-believer in cables, that they're all the same, regardless of how much you spend, put it in the comments. But let's be respectful. Because I will be monitoring these comments, and if people are saying things like, this is dumb, or using broad, all-encompassing statements, I'm going to nix it. But if we can have a civil conversation, let's have a civil conversation about it. Do cables matter? I don't know. Put it in the comments. I'm getting really close to 100,000 subscribers, which is incredible. It's insane. And if you want to get some free stuff, there is a way to enter my 100,000 subscriber giveaway. You're going to get stuff from Emotiva, SVS, Fluence, Orbit, Isoacoustics, some other people, periodic IEMs. So to enter, you have to subscribe to the channel, obviously, fill out the Google form, and then follow me on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, that's fine. It's okay. I also have TikTok now. I did it today. At Cheap Audioman. TikTok.com at Cheap Audioman. I don't know. We're going to have some fun with it. Here's another one that just incites a bunch of hysteria amongst audiophiles. Measurements, especially speaker measurements, and then synad measurements with electronics. Let's talk about speaker measurements. So I like speakers that don't have a flat measuring frequency response. Okay, some. I also like speakers that have a flat measuring frequency response. Some. I don't like all of them, but a lot of times, a lot of the speakers that I've recommended, go figure, have a very linear frequency response. I think measurements are really important from the standpoint of like resonance issues. So there's a measurement called the waterfall analysis, and if there's certain frequencies that are getting excited, I think it's because the enclosure is getting excited. There's a bunch of people out there that do speaker measurements, and I think it's awesome. I think it's great. However, I don't think there's any pre-described frequency response that should be the target. I know Harman has a curve called the Mark Harman target. Not only was he the star of NCIS and an executive producer, apparently he knows a lot about headphones and what people like. The Mark Harman curve. Look it up. He was also a quarterback in college. Mark Harman curve. I'm just kidding. Anyway, Harman did a study, or basically a survey of what people liked. They came up with a curve and they said that is their target curve. It doesn't mean that's perfect for everybody. And I don't think a linear frequency response is perfect for everybody. I really don't like a rise in the upper mid-range around 1800 or 2000 hertz or what have you. I like a bit of a dip actually in there. So I can crank it up real good. Feel the bass in the lower mid-range in my chest. I like it. I'm one man though. I don't think people should judge speakers based on frequency response alone. Conversely, I don't think people should denounce or dismiss people that measure speakers. There's people that love zoo speakers, and they don't even have a crossover, to my knowledge. So there's room for everybody. I don't think anybody should say this speaker. Now, if it obviously has resonance issues that are distracting, then yes. If it has frequency spikes and troughs that are distracting, then yes. But the speaker doesn't need to measure a specific way, at least in my opinion. I like clip speakers for a while. I usually can't listen to them for more than a couple of hours, but I really enjoy it for that period of time. And I know they don't measure flat. That's all right. I like them. Guess what? A whole bunch of other people like them as well. So the other measurement that I want to talk about, or that I think should be discussed in a civil manner, is synad. It's basically a measurement of distortion and noise. The higher the synad number, the better that a piece of electronics is supposed to sound. I will say there is a product, the Topping PA5, that I think is just an outstanding amplifier. I think it sounds brilliant. And it scores really, really, really well. Conversely, there are Nelson Pass design amplifiers that have a whole bunch of second order harmonics. And guess what? That's distortion. So that amplifier is not going to score well in comparison to other amplifiers. Tube amps have a ton of distortion in second or even order harmonics. People love tube amps. People lust after tube amps. So measurements don't tell the entirety of the story. I'm on both sides of the fence on this one though. I've heard stuff that I love that measures well, and I've heard stuff that I love that doesn't measure well. Even some manufacturers will say that yes, they can get the distortion down to next to nothing by using negative feedback loops, but when they do that, the piece loses a bit of musicality. It's not as musical anymore. Go figure. So yes, this is science, but there's also some art involved with it as well. Should they be timbre matched for voice? I say no. I say it doesn't matter at all. There's been one instance where I have had a mismatched center and front speakers that I've been, this is distracting. And that was, I can't remember what movie it was, but there was somebody that was off camera just to the left. And then there's somebody that was in frame. So the voices kept going from center to left front speaker. I could tell a difference between those speakers. But most of the time, I don't think it matters at all. And it's almost like a propaganda campaign that all of your speakers need to be timbre matched. Do they? I don't think they do. One instance in 30 years have I noticed, oh my goodness, this doesn't sound very good. I regularly have a different type of center speaker than I do my front speakers. And don't get me started on surround speakers. How much information is actually going through the surround speakers? Even on blockbuster movies, occasionally there's some stuff that comes from behind you. Usually it's a bullet or a spaceship or an explosion. It's not voices. And if it is voices, they're way far away and there's echoes and there's all sorts of stuff. Saying those speakers need to be the same or timbre matched or anything, it's absurd. You can. I mean, if you like the speakers, great. But there's not a ton of info that goes there. And Atmos speakers, not a ton of information that goes through Atmos speakers. And really, why do we need timbre matched Atmos speakers? It's like for rain and stuff. Okay, so this was probably going to stir up some vitriol. So in the comments, tell me why home theater speakers need to be timbre matched. I get it, kind of, with your center and your front LCR. I get that those need to be sometimes timbre matched. But again, anecdotally, there's been one instance out of the last 30 years that have been like, oh, this is kind of distracting. Usually it doesn't even matter. So is it propaganda or is it real? Do we really need timbre matched home theater speakers? I say no. Speakers need to soundstage an image, or speakers need to disappear to be good speakers. I think there's some truth to that, if that's your thing. Most of the time for me, I do like center imaging and I like lateral imaging. But as far as like forward to aft imaging, it's cool when I get that. But in my circumstances, I don't really have the freedom to be able to play speakers to get this huge 3D immersive 2-channel experience. I think it's awesome, and occasionally I will pull stuff out and get that. But a few speakers that I've heard don't do that. They don't have that 3D imaging or that disappearing act. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. Actually, one of them was Eclipse Heresy, and I liked that speaker, but I did notice that sometimes the soundstage would break down depending upon, really with cymbal crashes. Also the Emotiva series, T1+, T0+, B1+, all the pluses. They are some of my favorite speakers that I've ever heard, but they don't always soundstage an image perfectly. So just because a speaker doesn't soundstage an image perfectly doesn't mean that it's a bad speaker, in my opinion. Granted, if that is what you're looking for, if that is high up on that priority list, then I get it. But I don't think we should denounce a speaker just because it doesn't soundstage an image perfectly. I don't know. What do you think? Is that a deal breaker for you? Put it in the comments and let's have a civil discussion. Speaker design, bookshelves versus towers versus narrow front baffle versus wide front baffle. Which one is right and why? I personally like small bookshelf speakers with a subwoofer. Generally, I like that. I don't know why, I just do. That's kind of my thing. However, I've heard a lot of tower speakers that I think are great. And I have a pair of Wharfedale Linton upstairs, which are one of my favorite speakers. So I have an appreciation for all different types of speakers. But I know some people that will only buy towers. Some people, not as many, that only buy bookshelves. Some people that only like narrow front baffles. Some people that like the throwback, the bigger style, like the Model 5s by KLH, the Klipsch Heritage line, the JBL L100. The Wharfedale Linton. So who's right? Who's wrong? Or are we all right? Tell me why a larger front baffle is better than a narrow front baffle. Why towers are better than bookshelves. Let's talk about it. I like bookshelves. So I don't know why audiophiles get so worked up about a lot of this stuff. And I could be painting with broad strokes, but in the comments, and since I do this for a living now, I read hundreds of comments, thousands of comments, and there are reoccurring themes that come up. Either you think cables are awesome, or you think they're snake oil. Either you think measurements are awesome, or you think they don't matter at all. People will say that your home theater speakers need to be perfectly timbre matched, and then me that says no, it doesn't matter at all. And then speaker design. So everybody has a different opinion. I think the market is the one that really determines whether or not something is true or not. People keep selling expensive cables. Companies keep making them. Companies make big speakers, small speakers, speakers without crossovers. People keep buying them. So who's to say who is wrong? I don't know. But seriously, let's talk about it in the comments. But we need to be nice and civil. Let's share our experience. And I know it's anecdotal, but I would rather take anecdotal evidence from people that I trust and that I like and that I respect over all the scientific data on the planet. Because at the end of the day, if Digital Dan says that this speaker sounds pretty good, I'm going to take his word for it. So let's come together as a community and discuss these things. Hands across America. Because we have way more in common than anything else. We may disagree with things, but we're all here for the love of music. If we take a stance about helping people understand your point of view, not saying that their point of view is wrong, but just talk. This great hobby could be even better, and we could bring more people into it. Just be nice. Regardless of what you think or regardless of what your opinion is, just be nice to other people. I don't like watermelon, but I'm not parading around saying that watermelon is the devil or that you're stupid if you like watermelon. I get it. People like watermelon. I don't. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon. Patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night, we have patron-only Zooms. We also have a patron-only Facebook group and a patron-only Discord group. You can also sign up for Tidal Music or Amazon. There are links in the description. Click on the links. Sign up. If you do, I get a couple of bucks, even if it's for a trial. You can also use the affiliate links in the description. I will get a commission if you buy through those links. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Go buy some expensive cables. Tell us why you did it. Fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.